make sure your advertising is locked in and you're just really, honing in your routes, guys. Like, I can't stress that enough. Your route density is gonna make or break a lot of your success, especially early on, because like Mike kind of hit it on earlier, the last thing we're gonna be doing is drive 15 minutes one way and then 15 minutes back the other way because Miss Smith wants to be on Friday. You gotta target those customers at the exact time you're in those neighborhoods and just deal with the repercussions if you can't take care of her or get $250 a cut, so.
I think, as I was just sitting here thinking, to me, you can't really have a spring strategy unless you kind of know what your overall strategy is. So if like me personally, I'm a solo operator who's very content being a solo operator. So my spring strategy is not going to get 400 more customers this spring. I'm going to use the same illustration I use with Paul because he just to work with him. But tell me this. Alabama.
Gotta bring Alabama football into it.
I'm not even a passionate fan. I just watch it. It's part of the culture. But what I'm saying is that their spring strategy is not let's go start a whole new team, let's revamp the offense. We just barely squeaked by last year. But it's like I want to get a little bit better in certain areas. So for me as a solo operator, I'm trying to fine tune what I feel like is going pretty well for me. And let me pick up a few more customers in these neighborhoods where I'm established. Let me improve my efficiency. Let me try to get my prices where they need to be, kind of thing. But again, if I have a friend, his strategy is to grow to a multi-million-dollar company and sell it one day. So his spring strategy is probably going to look a lot different because he's really trying to ramp up revenue and clients and all that. So you get a higher value one day, obviously, than I will.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, just like knowing what your budget hour capacity is for the spring, and then a lot of people try to do everything in the spring, whereas if you push projects off further off in the summer and focus on the more immediate services that need attention right away, mowing, like you can push off a paver patio till summer and sell someone that 3 months down the road, but you can't tell someone, hey, I'll get to your lawn that's overgrown in 3 months. So trying to just prioritize which services you're going to actually do during the spring rush is something that really helped us to kind of level out the spring rush massive demand kind of few months.
I would say that whatever your plan is, to share it with your team and to get them on board with it so that they can watch you and kind of block for you and help you do whatever your plan is, and also have a plan for your personal care to pace yourself. Because you know what it's like in spring rush, and have your non-negotiables of things you're going to do to make sure you hydrate and sleep. I know that sounds silly, but everybody crashes if they don't.
So that was just a tease. So my plan. No, so last year's plan, because I can tell you the results versus this year's plan. Last year's plan, it was what's my biggest headache going into last spring rush, and a gazillion phone calls, emails, all that stuff. So how do I alleviate that off of my shoulders? So I tried out a call service so that they handled 80-something calls in April, and I only got to deal with the ones that mattered to me, the ones that needed a quote, needed me to talk to for various reasons. So every time my phone rang, one ring, while I was on a mower, or I was talking to somebody, or I was given a quote, it would automatically get transferred to that call service, and it was a huge weight off my shoulders knowing that I didn't have to deal with that until later on in that day, or if they called me back because it was something urgent or whatever. And that helped me just stay focused on the clients that I already had and making sure that we get the work done in the spring rush, right? Because we have a ton of work to do, but then also dealing with that influx. Especially if you're trying to grow, what is your plan for that? Like, that's great to grow and advertise and have that all part of your marketing strategy, but if you don't have a way to deal with the influx of all the phone calls and emails and Facebook messages, that's not going to help you. That's just going to flood you with overwhelming response, and it's also going to put a bad name potentially out there for you and your business because you're not even answering the phone or handling it. So that was my plan last year, and it was a game changer for me.
What did you have in mind when you were thinking about controversial questions to me?
That's for audience participation.
Dad versus no dad.
All right, well, hold on. I had a piggyback.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I had a piggyback off the spring rush, and then we can get into that if you want. So, you can think about your answer, Mike. So, all right, piggybacking, Naylor's married with children, you know, Jason married 4 children, Sean and TQ married public marriage and children. Mike, did you get a girl yet? All right, so Mike and I are single. But, how do you?
You're the only one advertising that, bro.
Oh, I got. Okay. So, all right.
We can give out your digits if you want.
Hold on, I'll get them for you guys. Or gals.
Back to the question here. Married, kids, a crazy schedule in the spring. How do you, sustain a healthy marriage and being there for your children while also serving your customers in such a high demand?
Well, when I first started, I told my wife I'm not going to start a project or start working past 6 o'clock, and she thought that was a really good compromise, because before that, in retail management, I worked all the time. The hours were all over the place. So I wanted to immediately start controlling my time so that I could be there for my family and kind of just recover from all the craziness of my previous life. So 6 o'clock was just like one of many examples of me having a definitive plan. Like 6 o'clock, I'm not going to work past 6 o'clock. I'm not going to start anything at 6 o'clock. So this way I can pack up and I can go home and we can have dinner together and spend time. Typically 6 o'clock's a little late for dinner, but it just gave me something to target, a goal. A lot of times I would be finished before 6, because it'd be 5:30 and I knew that I couldn't start anything and be done by 6, so I would stop. So that's just one of the many things that I did to help.
So if
with
it's
that.
5:50 and you're like, oh, let's bang out one more, you're like, nope, because it's 6 o'clock.
Correct, yeah.
I think, I'm gonna give the same answer I gave on the last question.
Alabama?
No, I'm not using that as illustration again, but I do think you have to start with the end in mind in a sense. So if I wake up tomorrow and I say, you know what, my life goal is on my tombstone for to say greatest lawn care provider of all time, and it's my only life goal, well then, yeah, then forget everything else, I'm going, just dedicate everything to that. But, and I think this is actually difficult to implement because I think most of you guys like us are entrepreneurs and you're self-employed or whatever, and so you are driven to make more money, and you know if I work more, I'll probably make more money. There may be some point where that is no longer true, but for a period of time, it's like if I mow another yard, I will get more money into the bank. So I think I had to think, well, yeah, that's true, but that's not the only thing I exist for. So I do have a family, I do have other things I value. Maybe it's even going fishing once a year or something with my son or something. So I have to make that a priority and be okay with it. That might actually mean making less money, but my number one goal in life is not to make money. I'm trying to make money, but I'm trying to do it more faster and more efficient, without neglecting all the other things that matter in life.
What's the quote in your shop?
I don't have a quote in my shop, but I thought about writing down, and yesterday I thought, in my mind I'm thinking, making money is very important. So I thought, I'm gonna just write on the wall is, what was it called? It was something that making money is not the most important thing in my life. It just right, and I know that. If you ask me in the same moment, I realize that. But on a day-to-day practical basis, if you looked at my life, you would think, I think the most important thing in Jason's life is making more money. And it's very important. And I'm not saying that I'm trying to retire at age a few years from now. But I need to be reminded of that, because again, if you're around a bunch of self-driven people, they're probably not going to remind you that very often. They're like, work harder, go do stronger, better, faster, and all that, which is great. But if you don't remember your kids' names when they grow up, it's kind of missed the point.
Yeah, so this one I could probably talk about for a day and a half. Only because it's something I personally struggle with. I don't go to it much on our social media because I try to keep our personal life out of everybody else's business. I just don't think it's something I really want to go into a whole lot. But I worked into a point where I could have easily ended my marriage. And luckily Savannah came to me and she said, this isn't working. I've shared with people in 2018 when I finally decided to take social media serious. I went over 3 years without missing a day of uploading a video. And I mean, shooting the video, editing the video, uploading the video, titling, description, thumbnail, you name it. And it took a solid probably 2.5, 3 years before she came to me and said, hey, this isn't working, you know, we need a day at least. So then I started taking Saturdays off. And I still take those Saturdays off for the most part. But as a person that's so driven for what I want to achieve, even on those days I take off, I feel like I should still be working. Like, it's hard to explain to somebody that doesn't get it. But I think Mike understands it, and I'm glad Mike actually knows where he's at right now with his business, and that he knows he doesn't want to bring a wife or something into that, because it would be bad. It would. Mike's on a path right now, he's so driven. I kind of went into that path already married, and it took a while to figure it out. But I did figure it out. I'm not perfect by any means, but you know, work is important, but it's not everything. And it hurts because, like, you know, that day that you're with your kids, like we were just in the Amish country on Saturday, the day before I was in Kentucky, Sunday we're flying down here, but you still take that day. And your kids will remember that, your wife will remember that, and sometimes maybe they're looking forward to that next Saturday, but it's also, you know, making sure they know that Saturday is going to be their day, and that it's filled from the time we wake up to the second we go to bed. They can do whatever they want. And for the most part, I'll try to keep social media out of it altogether. You can plan ahead with that kind of stuff. But to kind of answer your question a little bit earlier when you were asking Mike about that personal disconnection, you know, between life and work balance, you can't, when you're driven, especially most people in here right now are at an age where you're still pretty motivated, it is extremely hard to find that balance. Because you're constantly in your own mind going to be saying, am I giving my family enough time? Am I giving my kids enough time? Am I giving my business enough time? And in reality, you don't know. You can only look at your life and how things around you are going. My kids are straight A students. My wife, you know, she shares with me every day that she's happy. We got a roof over our head, food in our bellies, you know, bills are paid. You know, we're trying to be a light in this community to, you know, we can all be better. So I have to look back, and maybe I'm not achieving as much because I'm taking that one day off a week that I could be putting elsewhere, but we're still having a large impact. So that's just my personal side.
Yeah, a lot of the times, a lot of the pressure we put on ourselves is just because of the optics to other people, and not only to build the business bigger, but also to, you know, quote unquote, spend more time with our family or have more work-life balance. Is like, well, that's what we're told we should, or like, I don't want to be looking like I'm the guy who neglected his family, or whatever. I just think a lot of times we have social pressures that push us in either direction, that really it should be between you and your spouse, or you and your significant other, your family, what your goals are, back to what Jason was talking about. That's what should be determined, in my opinion. And based on like my experiences, and obviously firsthand, it's secondhand through the franchisees, seeing what works. Last year we had 4 what we called state of emergencies. So they can declare state of emergency, and they basically take the business over for 6 weeks. And so all 4 of them fortunately made it through, but every single one had to do with overdoing their capacity or something in their personal relationship. And so that is a matter of like, we try to do what we can on the business side, but it's ultimately, it's like you guys did not have a conversation about what the hours were gonna look like. You know, when were I supposed to clock out? Like, what are the goals of this business? Like, you know, people come to a conference like this and they go home like super fired up, and then wonder why their spouse is like a drag. They weren't here. They don't know what you heard and what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve. And so I think staying on the same page and making sure there's some common ground there is important, instead of just, you know, 3 years down the road realizing that you're in a completely different mindset and mind space than them.
Speaking of balance, I think there's a good balance of us that are here. So I am single and not looking, and I have 2 grown children and 4 grandsons. And I'm at a whole different, where I've turned that corner, 400% of the kids, trying to keep a balance. And then now I've made the decision that this is what we're doing. Every year we write down our goals of what we want for our business, personal life, fitness, health, the whole thing. And then we go for it. And so there's no balance. And my kids understand that this is what we're doing, and they appreciate that somebody's working hard to go towards their goals. And I also recognize that if I raised awesome kids, like you guys are doing now, then they're very self-sufficient, and when we are together, the quality of our time is so good.
Fantastic answers, guys. That was really good. Jeremiah, can you clarify your question? Or was that sarcasm, sir?
No, that's an open discussion. Like, if anybody else has a question on that, it's just, it's always, if you want controversial topics, that is one of them.
Okay, so the question from Jeremiah Jennings, Growing Green Landscape, was debt or no debt to grow your business?
It's not a one answer fits all.
Okay, question came from Jeremiah Jennings, the instigator in the back. He wanted to know about, and he's a big debt guy, so that was, he was biased in his question. But are you a Dave Ramsey type, no debt, build your business at the speed of cash, or are you a Jeremiah Jennings, go into debt, scale your business? You want to use that one? Get on me.
So a wise person told me that, again, it's about your goals and how fast you want to grow, because you can do it debt-free, but it's slower growth. And obviously, if you do it too fast and you go into too much debt, then that's unrecoverable. So I think it depends on your goals and what you try, like a balance between the two. Me personally, I try to follow that balance motto. Like, you know, a little bit of business debt is not a terrible thing to help you grow to the next level, as long as you have a strategy and a plan how you're going to pay that debt back. Like, if you're buying a mower that you need to make money, clearly, you know, how are you going to make money if you, it's almost like a double-edged sword. So you have to have a plan, you know, to save and use a little bit of debt, things like that. But going completely debt-free and going all in debt, I think, are two complete opposite results. It depends on the person, the risk factors, what you can and can't handle, and what ultimately your goals are for your business. If you just want a solo owner-operator business, then you can do it debt-free, 100%. And you just got to know how long things are going to take. But that's just my unexpert opinion.
Me personally, I think you can use debt smartly, you know, but first and foremost, you know, cash flow, you're gonna wanna have a good reserve of that, so that, you know, if it does go bad, you're still able to pay your bills. But everybody knows in here, you can buy a piece of equipment, but are you buying something that you don't necessarily need? That'll all come down to your overhead. Your overhead is just astronomical, and you're not generating enough money to put money in the bank and save. You know, you're doing something wrong there. So I use my own personal example. Last year we bought a storage facility. We took money, yeah, we had to put 30% down, that's right out of the front. But that property, you know, we knew looking at the numbers that we could turn it around and we could start cash flowing almost $3,000 a month on it. It alleviated all of our storage problems immediately. It, just by upgrading certain things, going to an on-base CRM, easy storage solutions, we took everybody that was meeting the previous owners at the place with a check, believe it or not, or cash, and now we never even see them. Yesterday, I'm sitting in a room with Noah, and we get 100% occupied, so I'm talking to somebody else that knows business. Mike's very first question, you're gonna raise rates, right? Obviously, yeah, you're gonna raise rates. You're not gonna get crazy, but you're gonna raise rates, because we don't wanna be 100% occupied, believe it or not. Just like, you know, if you're a lawn care business, you don't want to be mowing 100 lawns if you're not making any money. So raise your prices, do less work, and make more money, if you guys kind of get what I'm saying. But to stay on topic of the whole debt thing, that's all a personal question. This is not financial advice for anybody watching anyway. Spencer Lawn Care is not legal, held liable for all that, just letting you know. But just be smart, guys. I think you guys know when you're sitting there like, hey, do I need this? Should I finance it? You know, you don't have money in the bank, you shouldn't be financing anything, because then you just put yourself at risk, and with risk comes stress, and with stress, bad problems start happening. You have a bad month, can't make that, the bills don't stop coming, so just be smart.
I think this question was for me. I'm not against debt, honestly. Like, we actually have quite a bit of debt. If people knew how many millions of dollars on their debt, they'd probably be flabbergasted. But it's not on depreciating assets, right? So it's only in real estate, and it's all stuff that has less than 4% interest on it. So technically, it's less than inflation. So what I get scared though is when someone, you know, says, okay, I have 0% down on this truck, and It's like, well, yeah, but you paid an extra $10,000 in financing fees. And so, the 0% down thing that everyone gets caught up into this industry, they're making their money somewhere. It's on the financing fees, and you're not gonna get a discount by doing a cash thing versus doing debt. So, I think it just comes down to risk tolerance too. Like, if you're in my situation, like if I go bankrupt, like I'm still gonna live in a closet like I do now, so like it's not gonna change a whole lot. Whereas if you have a family, like I think it's your obligation to ensure that if things go really south, that you're gonna be able to keep something over their head and food on the table. That is really important. So obviously I tend to think more in terms of cash because I think it makes people think more conservatively. And so that's like, oh, I get the $80,000 truck. It's like, oh no, if I'm paying more cash, I'm probably gonna opt for the $30,000 truck. In my opinion, $10,000 spent on marketing is going to do a whole lot more for you than spending $10,000 more on a truck. I just can't get any math to prove otherwise. And so I think too many of us spend way too much money. We look at the assets of our business that we spend money on versus what we spend in marketing, which actually brings in customers. It just blows my mind that people can't get a website and yet they have $50,000, $200,000 of assets. It's nuts.
Can I piggyback off that a little bit, Mike? Where do you draw the line? Because I know your motto is to use like a little bit older trucks. My motto is, hey, I'm gonna use newer trucks now because we can for one, and we have less breakdowns most of the time. Not saying new trucks can't break down, obviously mine do all the time. But where do you find that fine line? I guess where's your age limit at on a vehicle where you're finding, maybe it just costs too much if it breaks down, or your time, your lost revenue, if you're, sitting there with a truck in the shop versus, a newer truck basically should go maintenance free for quite a while.
Totally. So I like to have backups in terms of trucks, and the problem with that is when you have only one or two trucks, for example, a backup truck becomes 30-40% of your fleet is sitting there every day. So that's not good. However, this is the thing. If you're looking at, say, a $50,000 truck versus a $15,000 or $20,000 used truck, I would personally go buy the truck for cash for $15,000 or $20,000 because I could then, just the savings on insurance alone, if you look at the insurance of a leased or financed vehicle versus one that you own, you can do way lower in terms of your limits, as well as your deductible could be higher. Personally, I'm not going to use insurance on a $300 damage thing. It's just not good, especially when you're in business, because then your deductible or your rates go up, etc. So I want like high deductibles. If you go finance your vehicle, you're not going to allow that. And that's going to cause your insurance to typically be almost double, sometimes triple the cost per month. So if I would have bought that $15,000 or $20,000 truck, yes, it is going to have more downtime, etc. But I could literally, with the savings of just my insurance, go get another truck that is financed and get a second $15,000 or $20,000 vehicle for the savings of that first one. And so, before 2020, we never spent more than $7,000 on a truck ever. Now, obviously, with truck inflation stuff, we're looking more like 12 to 15,000. But I just don't buy the fact that if a truck goes down for a day, 2, 3, a week even, that I can't buy a cheap truck that can back it up, and I spend the other money on marketing and things like that.
What year, make, and models are you buying? Where are you buying these $12,000 to $15,000 trucks?
Yeah, so right now we really I don't like to go too much earlier than 10 years out. Like that starts to get where there is issues, especially the electrical. For us, it's the electrical. Buying trucks out of Canada, you gotta be careful too with the salt, and we're close to the border. So we were looking for trucks that are within 10 years, so 2013, 2014 is like my wheelhouse. We just bought 8 trucks for the ones that are just getting started in North Carolina, all 2013 and 2015, and we all of them were about $13,000 to $15,000, and all of them have less than 100,000 miles. I really want to get like 5 to 8 years out of them, and if I have to replace the engine at that time, like we'll determine what that price is then. But back in the day, if a truck needed a new engine, it was out because like it was the cost of a new truck. But now, I'm not going to go spend $15,000 if my engine's only 5. It's just different math, right?
Ford, Chevy, what are you buying?
Flip a coin. Doesn't matter. I just have
Painted yellow.
Yeah, painted yellow. As long as it's yellow and has max on it, we're good to go.
Are y'all going to auction? Where you buying?
No, I've gone to auction before. I'm not a huge fan of doing what's it called? The damage for? Not refurbished. What's the word?
Salvage?
Salvage. The other one.
Rebuild?
Rebuild. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of rebuild titles, mostly because I've seen issues with the electrical. And electrical for me, like, I don't know how to do it. I've never changed oil in a car. I hardly know how to do like fluid for the windshield wipers. So electrical is way beyond my pay grade. So I've just seen a lot of issues with those. But we used to get them all from Canada. It was great. The exchange rate, and they have a ton of trucks up there from the oil fields. But since COVID, we just stay on the US side, which is a little more difficult to get stuff across the border. You know, the previous administration was a little easier to get things across the border.
And to argue a little bit, because every business is different. We plow, obviously Mike's already shared that that's not really something they target. Any of you guys, if you know plowing, after 5 years, that's somebody else's problem, yeah. Because you're gonna be rebuilding the whole front end, that's gonna cost you $5 to $7 grand, especially with, you know, rates now in the shop. So it's really also figuring out what works for your business. You know, if you're in snow plowing, you know, even Noah that's sitting up here in front, I mean, he'll buy a 90s truck, but he's got a mechanic in-house, a guy that knows, you know, right around the corner that can fix anything. If it breaks down, like I've literally seen this guy put 7 toggle switches to turn his headlight on. Like, I'm not kidding. He sends his videos like click, 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 turn the headlight, turn the steering wheel to the left, and turn the radio on, and the headlights come on. But he gets it done and he keeps working. So it's finding out what works for your business as well.
To argue a point again. When it comes to snow, I agree with them, especially because I know like them specifically, they do a lot of snow. It's a very big piece of their business. But back to what we talked about this morning, what percentage of your revenue are you making these buying decisions on? Right, it's a big chunk of their revenue. Snow plowing is very, very profitable for them. But if you're doing like 2 lots or 3 lots, you're making 20, 30 grand a year, probably a good idea to be making a truck purchase based on that service. And so that's when it's like, okay, if it's not worth it, if you're making 10, 15% of revenue, cut the service so you can scale back your equipment. So when we stopped doing artificial turf and these massive projects, I could get rid of dump trucks and tree chippers, and that caused my insurance to go down, and the amount of skill I would require to get guys trained up, that went down. So just be careful of that too. But I agree with him. If you're doing a lot of revenue, like snow plowing, tree chipping, a lot of hauling debris or equipment, you've got to have bigger trucks that are nicer.
Yeah, I want to elaborate a little bit real quick. Neither one of us are wrong. It's really, you have to find out what's right for you and then move forward with that. And you'll figure out on your own what's working, what's not working. If you're not using it, get rid of it.
So here is a non-tool truck answer. I think that it depends on debt or no debt. I just love these deeper questions, thank you. If you're young and you make stupid decisions like I did, you think you know everything and you make bad decisions earlier, I think Dave Ramsey's program is good to get you back on track. So I did the envelope system and completely got my family out of debt that way. It was a real pain to carry envelopes around and all that cash, but it worked and it was successful. And I remember thinking, oh God, give me $1 million. What would I do with $1 million? Which isn't very much now. But I always had this thought, what would you do with it? Like, could he even trust you with $1 million? Like, what would you do with it? And I know that my answer then would be very different than now. Like now, I know that I would just take the money and go grow businesses. Because even all the personal stuff that, you know, I live in a little tiny place too. And to me, that's what it's all about, is like multiplying the wealth and doing more with the money than just having the money and having things. So I think it does depend on your maturity level and whether you can handle the debt and will be mature enough to handle it correctly.
Well said. We want to open up to the floor. Jeremiah, you reached your limit. So let's have someone else answer the question. Great question. Anyone else have a question?
Being disciplined, like he talked about, exercising and things like that, and y'all talked about cars and trucks, or trucks. What do you do with your lawn equipment? How often do you service it? When is it time to get rid of the lawnmowers, buy new ones, blades?
So the question is, for the sake of the World Wide Web, how do you service your equipment and keep things running efficiently and maintenance of the equipment? Is that a fair summary, sir?
Yes, and then if you decide to trade, how long do you use them before you get rid of them?
And how long do you use a piece of equipment until you sell it off and upgrade?
Well, starting out as an owner-operator, I took really good care of my stuff, so I have all of my original equipment still to this day, 9 years later. But as things started to get older, I would just replace them. I would position them in the backup category or the secondary mower, for example. Like my first grandstand was approaching 2,000 hours. Kohler EFI engine. It's going strong, and shout out. But I knew that I needed to get something else to be the front runner, so I got a grandstand multi-force with the Kohler EFI engine. But so that's the first mower, and the second grandstand is now the backup secondary mower to extend the lifespan of that mower. But so it's different for everybody, right? So I know there's going to be other different responses here, but for me, being able to take care of my stuff well for so many years by myself, and then teaching any of my employees the same thing and how to take care of them, just being really hands-on. And as you get bigger, you just have to scale that differently, whether you have mechanics and things like that. But I just always take care of my stuff and try to think ahead of how, I do all the maintenance myself, anything that's above and beyond me, which I'm not a mechanic by any means. I just go to my dealer. I have a great dealer relationship that's right down the road. So I really factored all this in. My storage is right next to the self-cleaning car wash, which is right next to my dealer, which is right next to the trailer fixing place. So like, it's all right there in a row. I've literally driven my mower back and forth to the dealer on the street. People are like, what the, so I just planned it all out. Storage is a little more expensive, but I'm paying for the convenience of being next to all that, which is right in the central location of my whole service area. So I just factor all that in so that I can just keep the longevity of all my equipment in my business.
I think the mathematical, financial answer is that it's better to keep your equipment longer, but I think I kind of agree with what Mike and Sean were talking about on the last question, that some of it is your personal tolerance level, which mine is low, extremely low. I just don't tolerate stuff breaking. So I just, for instance, this week I bought a minivan. You go, well, one had 230,000 miles on it, which I think the smart financial decision, or what I've heard at least, is the cheapest vehicle you can buy is the one you currently own, So probably been better to keep it at a fine transmission.
I've been in that thing before.
Yeah, it gets you where you need to go. But my personal tolerance level says, no, I'm tired of stuff breaking. I don't want to deal with that. So we went and got ripped off on a newer one, And so I think the same is true with lawnmowers. But if you're not mechanical, just using this gentleman as an example, or Sean's talking about the switches and all that. So I really don't like doing that stuff, and I don't know how to do it. I don't want to work on lawnmowers ever, basically, other than change the blades or something. So for me, it's kind of like one strike, you're out. The thing tore up, I'm selling, moving on. So I like Mike's philosophy on buying trucks. So I think for lawnmowers, when I was starting, I was all about trying to be profitable. And so I had several brands I was perfectly fine with a lawnmower. I was looking on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever it was at the time and looking for the low hour quality brand. And I wasn't like, I've got to have this brand, and so anyway, I found one that had, some old man owned and kept it in his garage and washed off every time he mowed the grass, and might be 5 years old but had really low hours. That made sense to me at that time as far as cost for what kind of income you're going to produce with it. So yeah, if you're Mr. Fix It, you like working on equipment, your strategy may be a lot different than that.
Yeah, me personally, mine's changed over the years. I used to love to run stuff until it was dead and just gone, and then pitch it off or whatever. Now we like to trade ours in every couple of years. Take that with a grain of salt though. We run Toros, we have a great dealership, so they offer a great fleet program, so we try to stay up to date. We have to recycle our mowers pretty frequently, more than even I would like to, by about a year. So every 2 years, we trade them in, we keep them in our fleet program, buy another one. It just keeps us getting that 24, 25% off, whatever it is. So it's just what we've adapted into our business, where it keeps our equipment, because now we're using multi-forces the last 2-3 years, whatever it's been. So we're using them all year round. We're putting salt on these things, and it's not, saying that the mower is bad. The salt affects the metal pretty quickly. So I don't want to keep it long term because I don't want the headaches. I don't want to deal with it. So I trade it in, get another new one. So that's just my personal business model. I don't recommend you guys doing it, but definitely check with your brands. I know a lot of them have fleet programs and ways you can save for your dealership.
Yeah, I'm really down with equipment. Like my first year, I didn't know you had to sharpen blades. So for the first year, I didn't sharpen or change my blades. I didn't know you had to do that. And I didn't know that that was a problem until I took it to the dealer and they could not get the bolts out, so I had to replace the whole spin. Anyways, bad news. And then like same thing with the zero turns. When we got zero turns, I didn't know you were supposed to change the hydro fluid out. And so like I just thought like after so many hours, like they just stopped working. Like I was just flabbergasted. So anyways, that gives you a little context. But now, when you're having employees do your equipment maintenance, I think the big thing is just making sure you standardize as much as possible all your equipment, as well as have automations to remind you to do certain things, because you're not going to be like, I have no idea where the trucks are at in terms of oil changes, the tire pressure, brakes, and etc. But you can automate a lot of it, right? So like whether you're using Copilot or another CRM, send automations where it's going to email you or give you a notification when you need to change oil, when you need to do all these things, and it knows how many miles the truck is going, it knows how many hours are on your mowers, and it just reminds, okay, time to do hydro oil, time to switch out the blades, time to do this other aspect, and or some kind of down when it comes to equipment like me, like you've got to have that, because otherwise just totally forget about it. So we just know we do oil changes twice a year on every single truck, no matter what, same time every year. I don't care how many miles are, if it's 2,000 or 5,000, it's like, we're just doing the oil changes in all the trucks, so we just keep it all the same.
I am not qualified to respond.
That was an excellent question. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Orange shirt?
With the rise in new times like the things we're in, everybody thought about going things gas or just a propane that you can lock in for like 5 or 6 years. You can lock your propane price in for like 5 or 6 years.
So the question was, with the variables of gas prices, is it smart to plan ahead with a fixed rate on propane?
I'm not qualified to answer that. I'm all gas.
Quick trip.
I can. And so, just like, I think for solo operators, electric's awesome. It's very, very good for, especially the hand tools I've found, and even someone like Brad in the back there would probably know the equipment a lot better than us. The thing that we kind of see it breaking down on is when you start getting a lot of crew members. So larger organizations, like it's very rare you're gonna go down the street right now and see a company has 20, 30, 40 employees using electric equipment, or even propane. And it's hard to find fuel source for propane. Guys mess it up a lot more often. And you're just dealing with, you've got to simplify every single thing for these guys, because they'll break stuff. Like if you leave one battery at a facility because they forgot it, that's a lot of fuel you could buy. Like a lot of fuel. For like a year, that entire machine, a Weedeater, could be operated with just the fuel by leaving one battery line. So you just keep that in mind. You gotta buy a lot of batteries, you gotta think about recharging. Can you use solar? Do you put them in the day? What happens if they forget to charge them in the night? Then you have a crew the next morning sitting there doing nothing. They're gonna buy a bunch of backup batteries. So there's just a lot more, I think, when you get to the bigger operations, that it's still not there yet. And it'll come down in price to the point where it will become the standard. And obviously you got states like California enforcing it, but for now, like larger organizations, we're not really, we don't see the math yet on it, but the cost will eventually come to the point where it will make sense to switch over, and we'll get there, I think, pretty quickly.
When I start my lawn care business, I hope to have one, it'll all be electric. I want to test it out and see some of these people wrong who are trying to defeat me and tell me that it's not a good idea. But I think it's a good idea, running a lawn care business all electric.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of electric, I'll be honest with you. I think everybody that follows my channel knows that. But I know a lot of you have to be wondering what Mike's working on up here, so I took a picture. He's actually ordering a yellow Lamborghini right now. I just wanted to make that clear, that's what Mike's working on. So I would have went with black myself.
Fake news.
Anyways, no, I 100% think electric at some point, is going to be, it's inevitable, it's coming, right? There's tons of money being thrown at it. Me personally, I'm kind of like, I consider myself like an old soul. There's just nothing like the sound of a diesel engine or, gasoline engine. You turn that electric on, it's like that just, it just doesn't do it for me. And I think when we get to that point is when I'll probably hang it up, like, seriously. Like I got no interest in electric stuff.
Any other questions?
How do you guys drive people to your website before people fill out your application for your estimate on your website?
So the question was, how do you drive traffic to your website to fill out your intake form? Excellent question.
SEO. I think we should hop on.
There's Cody Owen at it.
So yeah, we do. Yeah, we do have about 300 websites we've built for lawn care and landscapers. So we track a lot, and then we spend a lot on research and development for SEO side of things. So over the past 10 years, the thing that's changed with SEO, search engine optimization, is a lot of the fact that it doesn't have as much to do with keywords as much now. It's really had a lot more to do with the speed of your site. So if your site is old and clunky and like has big images and video files that take a long time to load, Google hates that because they've got when you type in something in Google and you look at the top right hand corner and say like, you know, 1 of 1,400,000 results. They've got to load all those results in a split second. And if your site is slow, clunky, takes a long time to load, they're not going to reward you with that. So obviously, I think that Google My Business, which is now Google Listings, is important. Getting Google reviews, that all helps you in your rankings. But yeah, like getting more is like ranking high on native is great, but like Google Local Services, great option to be able to pay and get the very top. Google is promoting this product massively. I truly believe if you're a solo operator, you will not need to spend a single dollar in marketing besides Google Local Services. You're going to pay between $12 and $25 per lead, and it's a phenomenal program. In my opinion, it'll replace HomeAdvisor and Yelp, and they're taking direct aim at that market because they're, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with everything Mike was saying. I wanted to add, excuse me, I'm sitting in the back not talking. SEO is about to be massively disrupted by the way that AI is being implemented into search engines, and it is going to break a lot of people's existing model of writing, you know, keyword-driven blog posts that get people onto their website, get them to convert, because now what's going to happen is the AI is going to synthesize your content and spit out an answer without sending them to your website. And so I think that what people need to be preparing for is investing more in paid social ads, getting dense targeting on Facebook and Instagram until the audience is, you know, somewhere else, until 35, 40-year-olds are on TikTok. We want to be where they're at, and just make sure that you're targeting neighborhood by neighborhood on social.
Yeah, one thing we've been looking at a bunch recently, like, has anyone used ChatGPT? All right, cool. So ChatGPT is the thing where you type in a question and it gives you a whole bunch of answers, or it gives you an answer without search. There's no 5 options or 10 options to weed, but there's like, this is the answer. And so what we're really looking at is, hey, what does it look like in a world where someone searches what's the best lawn care service near me, and it's going to pop out one answer. How do you become that? One thing that we're looking at right now, and it's not really clear in terms of what is going to win this yet, but I believe that a site that's very, very fast load speed and doesn't have a lot of processing power required to get it to upload is extremely important, because right now the thing that's holding LLMs, large language models, these ChatGPT type AI, is the fact that it costs about 10 to 12 times more in processing power than a Google search. And so for right now, like, this is why ChatGPT just got $10 billion from Microsoft, is because it takes so much processing power to be able to produce that result. And so, in my opinion, what's going to get really promoted, especially the onset of AI, is going to be sites that load very quickly, that are very light, and don't have a lot of a lag time and processing power required. So it's just like figuring out a good design that's going to have, you know, your pictures have to be rasterized correctly, make sure they're not like 5 megapixels and take a long time to load, things like that. Pop-ups aren't really looking good on Google anymore, they don't like it, stuff like that.
So I didn't answer because I have a completely different perspective on this, so love it or hate it, but in 9 years I haven't had a website. I've had Google My Business and Facebook business page, and right before COVID we were almost at 100 accounts in just three neighborhoods all surrounding each other. So I just never had a need for any of that. I just had so much word of mouth and the brand marketing of us just driving through the neighborhoods all the time, they just
constantly saw us. And again, Google My Business, when you just fill Google with whatever you need, all the reviews and all the Facebook groups in those those HOAs, those closed Facebook groups, and they ask, someone moves in, they ask for recommendation. You know, when you have over 20 clients in a neighborhood, you're bound to have multiple people recommend you, and then all of a sudden people just see the company that's recommended multiple times versus all the random other companies. And it almost becomes, one person said that it was almost like peer pressure. She felt like she had to contact me because her entire cul-de-sac was using me and they all recommended me. And so that's a great place to be. And transparently enough, I didn't get a website when I first started because I was broke. You know, I went from retail management to starting my lawn care business, owner-operator. I was like, I need to do everything free. I don't have money to invest. Right now I'm just trying to survive. So I just never invested in a website, and then I quickly realized how important route density was, and I knew that I could laser focus route density with Facebook and Google My Business, and just being in the neighborhoods, driving around with, starting with just a magnet on my door of my truck, to now an enclosed trailer and ramp rack truck, and everything's all lettered up so everybody sees me. And the best thing that I hear from people when they say, oh, what's the name of your company? Oh yeah, I see your trucks everywhere. We just have one truck.
Good job, Rick. And I want to add about Facebook micro-targeting. Cody taught me all about this and showed me the back end of how it works, but Facebook actually knows where you live. And so if there's a certain neighborhood that you want to work in, on Facebook, you literally draw a map around that neighborhood, and you can run Facebook ads just in that neighborhood, which is way better than every door direct mail, because you control exactly what addresses and streets get your Facebook ads. So I'm a big fan of Cody's walked me through how to set those Facebook micro-targeting ads up. But this is good question. Any other questions? Ma'am?